Welcome to Check It Out, the Acton Memorial Library Show. This show is brought to you by the Acton Memorial Library on the Town of Acton radio station, WAEM 94.9 FM. I'm Danielle Savin, the library director, and I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Clare Seaton, a librarian at Acton Memorial Library.
And I'm Carolyn Lombardo, Circulation Department at the Acton Memorial Library.
We are coming to you today from our own homes to talk about one of the things we love, libraries, the Acton Memorial Library in particular. This June marks the 130th anniversary of the Acton Memorial Library first opening to the public. Today we are going to start talking about the history of Acton Memorial Library from its founding through about 1945. The material we are discussing today is drawn from a booklet published by the Memorial Library Trustees called A History of the Acton Memorial Library. This booklet was based on material originally prepared by former trustee Brewster Conant as an address to the Acton Historical Society. In 1990, it was revised and edited by former trustee Dennis Ahern for the occasion of the library's 100th anniversary. Another updated edition has been put together by the reference department for the 130th anniversary. Early on, almost all U.S. libraries were paid for by private subscription. In other words, users paid to use the library. Acton was no different. The Center Library was established in the early 1800s, but it wasn't Acton's first library. Historic documents state that in 1801, there was a social library, of which subscribers included many Acton veterans of the American Revolution.
Yes, and there was also a library in West Acton called the Citizens Library of West Acton, and that began in 1883 with 68 subscribers. According to a local newspaper, by 1889, Acton had 5 libraries with a total of 3,000 books. 2 were association libraries with 2,000 volumes. The other volumes belonged to Acton Sunday schools. The Citizens Library actually still exists as a separate entity from Acton Memorial Library to this day.
Free tax-supported libraries were created in the 1830s, and that began with a library in New Hampshire in Peterborough. In 1837, Massachusetts enacted legislation to create district school libraries, but it didn't go very well. So in 1851, an act was passed allowing communities to establish and support public libraries.
Now we're going to move on to specifically Acton Memorial Library history. And we have to talk about William A. Wilde, who was the central figure in the founding of Acton Memorial Library. William Allen Wilde was born on July 11, 1827, in Acton at the family farm at Parker Street. Later on, he lived on Independence Road.
Wilde was educated at Groton and Pepperell Academies and taught school for some dozen years, including at Southeast School in Acton.
He entered the publishing business and assumed control of the New England business of Iveson, Blakeman, Taylor and Company of New York. In 1865, he established the publishing house of W.A. Wilde and Company. Among the items published were the Sunday School Quarterlies, used almost universally by New England congregational churches at that time.
That seems like a really solid thing to be publishing that's going to be purchased. To some success for him. Wilde was civically involved throughout his life in many different ways. His contributions over the years included serving as the Malden Superintendent of Schools, as the chairman of the State Board of Prison Commissioners, and as a state legislator in 1887 to 88. And he was also the chairman of the standing committee of his church, the First Congregational of Malden.
In 1889, he had turned his thoughts to his native town of Acton and Acton's Civil War veterans, both alive and dead. He approached several of his friends and former townsmen about creating a suitable memorial.
And we got to just have a little tangent here and talk briefly about Acton and the Civil War. There's really interesting history there that we may want to go deeper into on a future show. But we just want to mention a few points here because this was so important to Wilde. In 1861, 3 days after the surrender of Fort Sumter, President Lincoln issued a proclamation calling for thousands of troops to defend the capital from the secessionists. Word got to Captain Aaron C. Handley, who rounded up a company who became the first volunteers in the Union to answer the call. And that company was called the Davis Guards, named after Isaac Davis, the Minuteman captain who fell at the North Bridge in Concord on April 19th of 1775. The Davis Guard was originally formed as a marching unit to represent Acton in the Concord Parade on the 75th anniversary of the battle. The company joined the Massachusetts Volunteer Militia and were commissioned as part of the 6th Regiment. They trained and conducted drills, which paid off after the order was issued to activate the militia in 1861. Over 100 Acton residents served in the Civil War.
So William Wilde wanted to honor Acton's Civil War soldiers. He came up with a plan to commission the design and construction of a free public library that would also serve as a memorial to those who fought in the Civil War. He wrote the following in a letter to Luther Conant in March of 1889.
I desire that Acton's Memorial Library shall be dedicated to two noble objects, to the memory of Acton's patriotic citizens who at their country's call left home and family ties, and on many a hard-fought battlefield made a united country once more possible. He wanted to, quote, let us show them all honor and gratitude, for they richly deserve it of us.
Wilde's second object for the library,
To give every man, woman, and child in Acton a library of good, pure, interesting, and instructive reading, so to mold the minds of all, especially those of the young, that the whole people shall be elevated socially, morally, religiously, by its silent, beneficent influences.
Yay! Thank you, William Wilde. We appreciate it.
In grateful anticipation of this contribution, the Reverend James Fletcher wrote in the Town Report of 1889, the Memorial Library building, which our generous benefactor, William A. Wilde, is rearing, is to be a permanent symbol of the union between letters and liberty.
At a cost of approximately $30,000, William Wilde proceeded to purchase the land next to Town Hall, commission the design and construction of a library, and stock the new building with thousands of books.
In May of 1890, he turned the deed to the land, library, and its contents over to the town.
Upon learning of Mr. Wilde's death in December 1902, the library trustees were moved to draft resolutions of condolence and gratitude to present to the family. They resolved also that the people of Acton now and in the far distant future will gratefully cherish the memory of Mr. Wilde and will faithfully keep all obligations to him, thereby ensuring the perpetuity of the institution so generously committed to their care.
And that's what we're doing right now. We're remembering him and appreciating him. In 1903, the annual town report reprints an account of William Wilde's life as written by his family and printed in the Boston Herald on the occasion of his death. And I wonder that might be why we have a lot of this information.
Yes, I'm sure one of the writers of the document did their research and pulled from it.
Probably so. All right, shall we move on to talking about the actual building?
Yes, as many of you know, the actual building still exists and the library has just expanded off of it. So next time you visit the library, maybe you'll remember some of this info and look at the building a little bit differently. On the property that later became the library was the Fletcher Shoe Store and Factory. An early 1800s library in Acton, the Center Library was located in the Fletcher Shoe Factory and Store until the building burned down in 1862. Historic documents from the Acton Historical Society website state that the fire was believed to have been an act of arson. What was salvaged from the library was moved to the general store on Main Street.
You guys, that's so crazy. Why was it an act of arson? What happened? The library was in the shoe factory and store. This is so fascinating.
Yeah, so I wonder if it was meant more for the workers who worked in the factory, or if customers who went to the store would patronize the library as well.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Carolyn, you found some of that information on the Historic Society website.
I did, on the Historical Society website. Yeah, there's a lot of info on it. It's pretty detailed and it's pretty interesting.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it was a big enough building. I mean, if you look at an old photograph, it's a really big building. So you would think that there would be room for a library back then, especially since they didn't have that many volumes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's over at the Acton Historic Society.
Yeah, yeah. And there's,
so check that out.
You can see the prints too of it. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, in 1889, Wilde bought the Fletcher property in the center of Acton. The farmhouse was moved to its present location on Negog Hill Road. So the house still stands.
I want to go see that one day. It's an old farmhouse.
Probably as a sign.
Be kind of interesting to find. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do a future episode as a road trip and we can find it.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
Like a virtual tour in Acton.
Yep.
That's cool. The old building, as Danielle mentioned before, as we know it today, made of red brick and brownstone, was designed by the Boston firm Hartwell and Richardson in 1889 in what was called the Richardsonian Romanesque style. You can read more about Hartwell and Richardson in Hartwell and Richardson, an introduction to their work, the Journal of the Society of Architectural Historians.
Groton native Charles H. Dodge was the builder. According to newspapers of the day, the bricks for the library came from East Brookfield, Massachusetts, and Epping, New Hampshire. Some of the pieces of freestone were so big, a team of 6 horses had to bring them from the depot to the building site.
Whoa, that's
Huge.
interesting.
And the entrance has a freestone arch where 2 huge slate memorial tablets have inscribed the names of 29 Acton men who died in the Civil War and 124 names of those who served and survived the war.
Danielle, that's in the library today, right?
The tablets are still outside of the library in the building that faces Main Street, which would be the original building that we're talking about now. If you look at the main entrance for that building, which we no longer use, you can see there's slate tablets on either side. If you don't want to go outside and read the names, you can come in the library. We do.
They're there, you can see them, and that we have a replica. Over the fireplace in the reading room is a brownstone tablet dedicated to Wilde that says, "This building, a gift to his native town by William A. Wilde."
We also have a painting of William Wilde in that reading room. So next time you're at the library, come to the reading room and take a look at the painting as well as the tablet over the fireplace.
That's one of my favorite spots in the library.
Love that room. I love
Right?
that room. Yeah.
So nice. Like if I ever want to just go read a book or something, I like to go there.
We keep it as a quiet study area. And then on the other, across from the reading room, we have an exhibit that it's a permanent exhibit. You can check that out as well. The book room was located on the right off the entry where there were book alcoves. The trustees room was straight ahead, and there was a fireproof vault where historical relics were kept.
The building was originally lit by gas, and 2 coal furnaces located in the basement provided heat. The furnaces were replaced in 1936. Electric lighting was provided in 1902 by the American Woolen Company. Edison Electric followed in 1930.
And the library was to be dedicated April 19th, 1890, but that was delayed until May 24th. It officially opened to the public June 14th, 1890.
June 14th, 1890.
Yeah, it's an important day.
Yeah.
A new addition was designed and proposed to the trustees in 1964 and was approved. The expanded library was dedicated in 1967. And then the library as we know it today had yet another expansion completed in 1999. Today, the original library houses the Civil War exhibit and a reading room. The interior of the reading room hasn't changed much since 1890.
Now let's talk some about the history of the collections in Acton Memorial Library. So the initial Acton Memorial Library collection, as recorded on April 19th of 1890, consisted of 3,450 books. Almost all of them were provided by William A. Wilde.
And in 1890, the town had voted a sum of $400 for maintenance of the library, plus $100 for books. It also became apparent that the $100 book budget was inadequate.
William Wilde contributed sums of $100 in 1891 and $150 in 1892 to help out. In 1896, the situation was resolved when Mr. Wilde proposed to give $5,000 as an endowment, as long as the town appropriated $200 for books annually.
The town meeting approved this arrangement, and until 1946, this comprised the library's book budget. Each book acquired was recorded in a bound accession book, a practice that continued until 1967.
We still have some of these early accession books in our local history collection.
Wow.
So many things to go check out when we're able to get back in the library.
Yeah.
In the early days, a subcommittee of trustees were responsible for book selection. Today, the trustees delegate that responsibility to the library staff. In the report of 1912 to 1913, Luther Conant wrote that, "Patrons should not forget that the impelling motive of Mr. Wilde in erecting and donating the library was to leave to the town a permanent memorial to the soldiers of the Civil War credited here, that there might not pass down to the young people a false idea of that great era in American history."
Soon after the library opened, artifacts and curiosities also began to accumulate. The town collected its historical relics, donated artwork, and military memorabilia from the Revolutionary War, War of 1812, and the Civil War at Acton Memorial Library.
Nice. All right, we're going to move on now to talk about Ida A. Hale, who was the library's first librarian. Ida A. Hale. She served in the library from 1890 to 1896. In her care was the opening day collection that we mentioned was 3,450 books, and that grew to 6,109 volumes by the end of 1896. That year, the annual circulation was recorded as 7,896. Now, how does that compare to our circulation annually today?
Well, our annual circulation today includes physical and digital materials, and we are around the 500,000 range. However, we have a much bigger population. It would be interesting to look at the original population of Acton at that time and figure out the percentages, because right now we have a high use library. Our residents are in and using the library, circulating books, and it seems like the residents were probably very excited back then to have a brand new library, and I'm sure they were in as much as they could be.
Yeah.
The trustees' first annual report commented, "The librarian, Miss Ida Hale, has proved capable and efficient, has taken good care of the books in the library, has kept her room with neatness and in order, and is commended for promptness and courtesy in the performance of her duties."
Very nice performance review.
She married Acton native Lyman Tuttle in Acton on April 25th, 1894, and retired as librarian in August 1896.
At which point, Acton had its second librarian, Viola S. Tuttle. Viola Sophia Tuttle was born in Acton in 1863. She served as Acton Memorial Library's second librarian from 1896 to 1902.
So early in Viola Tuttle's term, the first catalog of books was prepared under the direction of trustee William D. Tuttle, listing each volume by subject and title.
They printed 600 copies of that catalog, aiming to be able to give them to the public. They spent $267.28 to have those 600 copies printed, and they set the price per copy for the public at 25 cents in the hope that no family in town would be deterred from obtaining one by reason of expense. But unfortunately, they didn't really sell very many of them.
In 1902, the library was open 2 days a week, held 7,785 volumes, and circulated 6,976 volumes.
In 1902, the town report informs us that in the early summer, the librarian, Miss Viola S. Tuttle, who for 6 years had performed the duties of that office in a very acceptable manner, resigned by reason of overwork and impaired health. The many patrons of the library unite in the wish that she may secure a speedy and complete recovery.
So there was just one librarian at a time,
At that time.
and it was only open a couple of days a week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Totally interesting.
Yeah.
Patrons really value when we're able to be open a lot of hours, in part because of how the library functions in so many ways, other than just a book repository, because we're a space and we have other stuff that we can offer. So I always think, one of the things about being a librarian is you often have to work in the evenings or on the weekends, but that's important because you want to be able to provide the service to the public in all of those times when they're not at their jobs.
Yep.
But definitely glad we're open way more than 2 days a week.
I wonder how many people back then actually used the library as a study space.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just wonder.
And what
Well,
the checkout policies were.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering if it was only open 2 days a week, you probably made your trip there to use something at the library. Whereas today, if you need study space, you might not be going to the library to necessarily check out a book, but you're like, I just need to find that space. I know for myself, sometimes I do better work when I was taking classes. I would do my homework better when I was not in my own house. So I would go out to my own local library to use space there. So I don't know if people back then would have used it the same way.
I think they probably used it more just to get the books that they wanted.
Yeah,
I would think maybe later on that became more popular to sit in the library and work.
definitely the library as a space like that has
Yeah.
evolved, like a gathering space or a study space or a workspace.
Yeah.
Yes, that's evolved with time.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to a very important figure in the library staff history, Arthur F. Davis. Arthur F. Davis was maybe better known for his many fine paintings and etchings of local scenes than for his tenure of 43 years as a librarian. He worked as a librarian with Acton Memorial Library from 1902 to 1945.
Interestingly, in 1924, he became a corporate trustee as well and served as such until his death in 1953. There's been 8 library directors or head librarians of the Acton Memorial Library, and he's the only one who also served on the board of trustees.
And Danielle, he was the library's janitor.
Yes, that's right.
From 1920 to 1937, of which he was paid extra. And he also did some cataloging there too.
In 1912, the collection had grown to over 11,000 volumes, and the library found it necessary to make improvements in how the books were cataloged and shelved. Up to that time, the system in place was an alcove system, which assigned books to a fixed shelf location. The library hired a student from Dartmouth College to reclassify the entire collection using the Dewey Decimal Classification System, and also introduced a card catalog.
Does that mean that the entire collection was nonfiction?
No, I don't think so, because although in today's libraries, fiction is usually separated from the Dewey numbers because it's just easier for patrons to find, it's very likely that they purchased classics of literature at that time, and there was a space in the Dewey Decimal System for them in the 800s. We just modernly don't really do that anymore.
In the nonfiction section in the Dewey numbers, we still keep mythology and legends and tales from around the world and fairy tales, which is always, it's always funny when I bring someone over to that section. I'm like, I know this is in the nonfiction section, but okay. The total number of books grew steadily to about 20,000 in 1934, where it stayed until the new edition was built in 1967.
I assume it stayed that way because they didn't have enough room to grow the collection anymore.
Yeah, I think so. It's still the case. You're limited by the amount of shelf space you have.
Yes.
At some point it becomes, if you're bringing something in, you got to weed something out. So.
Yeah.
This is going to sound like maybe a silly question, but does that mean that for more than 30 years, no new books came into the library?
I'm not sure. We'll have to go back and look at the accession books from that time. Some books may have had to come in because as a book gets damaged, you're going to want to buy a replacement if it's an important book in your collection. So they may have had to withdraw some books as they wanted to add a newer book to the collection. Especially for nonfiction, things like that change. There was a lot of innovation between 1934 and 1967, so there must have been some books that were out of date and may have presented incorrect information.
Just as we do today.
Yes.
Make sure that we try to have accurate information in the library. In May of 1931, Lucius A. Heselton, the last living original trustee, died. With all of the original trustees also passed on, the board decided to turn to the task of recording the history of the library.
A history of the Board of Trustees compiled by E. Faulkner Conant, the secretary of the board, was published in the 1931 Annual Town Report. Updated versions of this history have been written throughout the years and allow us to share this history with you now. So we're going to pause there because there is some more history that happened between 1945 and the current day, but we're going to bring that to you in our next episode. I believe Claire has prepared some trivia.
Yes.
Carolyn and me again.
Are you guys ready for some trivia?
Yes.
All right, here we go. According to the Institute of Museum and Library Services, public libraries are visited blank times every year. Is it 24.8 million, 50.5 million, 650 million, or 1.4 billion?
I'm going to guess 650 million.
Yep, that's what I'm going to go with, C.
I think that's what I would have guessed too. However, it's actually 1.4 billion.
Oh my gosh.
My husband was trying to figure it out because he had heard that about 700 people go on the first show. He heard that stat of like 700 people going through our library doors every day. And then he was trying to like think about over a year and then like multiply that out to the country. But I don't remember if he got it right or not. Okay, next one. Which of the following historic figures never worked in a library? Is it A, former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, B, author Lewis Carroll, C, former First Lady Laura Bush, or D, China's Mao Zedong?
I'm going with J. Edgar Hoover.
I'm going to go with D.
All right. It was a trick question. They all worked in libraries. It's the only trick question, I promise. I couldn't resist. I just thought it was so funny that they all worked in libraries. Okay. Libraries house books, CDs, DVDs, and things ranging from birding kits to baking pans, and they sometimes watch over historic artifacts. The New York Public Library contains around 46 million items, and not all of them are books. Which of the following is not at the New York Public Library? A, a fedora that once belonged to Frank Sinatra. B, a 16th century globe. C, an original copy of the Bill of Rights. Or D, a Honus Wagner baseball card, largely considered to be one of the rarest in the world.
I'm going to go with the baseball card.
I'm going to go with the baseball card.
All right. It was actually the fedora that once belonged
I was going to say that.
There's no way to know it. I tried to think of something that would be at the New York Library.
That was my second guess because I think he was born in Hoboken, New Jersey. So although he's associated with New York,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a New Jersey guy. Yeah.
New Jersey libraries might have some artifacts from.
Maybe that will show up in future trivia.
Yes.
All right. Are there more McDonald's or public libraries in the United States?
Public libraries.
McDonald's.
Fair guess. It is public libraries. There are more public libraries than McDonald's in the United States. Yay. If you count solely public libraries and their branches, you get 16,536, which is 2,000 more than there are McDonald's.
Good.
I know, that is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew Carnegie spent over 55 million of his wealth on libraries alone. He's often referred to as the patron saint of libraries. How many libraries did Carnegie build in the United States? Is it A, 193, B, 630, C, 1,679, or D, 11,212?
I'm going to go with B.
630.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with B too.
Okay. It's actually 1,679.
Wow.
And I didn't know this. He founded a total of 2,509 libraries throughout the English-speaking world.
Wow.
I didn't even know. He built them in US, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand.
Wow.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a good one. In 1995, at the Library of Congress, a historian found a small envelope of cocaine when looking through A, a folio of tour memorabilia, notes, and lyrics donated by the Rolling Stones. B, the manuscripts of Karl Koller, an Austrian ophthalmologist. C, a multi-volume journal of Sigmund Freud's. Or D, the medical satchel of Lucretia Mott, the US Quaker abolitionist, women's rights activist, and social reformer.
Oh, it's got to be A, no?
The Rolling Stones?
Before I answer this one, do they actually own all of those things? Because those are really cool artifacts.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just made up the ones that they aren't the answer.
Okay.
I mean, they are cool artifacts, though.
Yes, they would be very cool to have. I'm going to go with C.
The multi-volume journal of Sigmund Freud's. That's
Sure.
what my family went with, too. And there's no way to guess this one, but it's actually the manuscripts of Karl Koller, an Austrian ophthalmologist.
Oh, my gosh.
He introduced cocaine as a local anesthetic for eye surgery. Packet had a note on it that said, remainder of the first dose with which I made my initial cocaine experiment in 1884.
Wow.
Want to do another one?
Yeah, let's do another one.
All right. Okay. The world's biggest library in terms of catalog depth is the Library of Congress, which has 168 million items. That record is a rebound from a calamity in 1814 when the then 14-year-old collection of 3,000 volumes was A, destroyed after British troops lit it on fire, B, commandeered and decimated during a book sell-off to fund the near-bankrupt government, C, vastly damaged by flooding when the library roof collapsed during the largest tropical storm the young nation had weathered, or D, made unreadable by an infestation of silverfish that tore through 3/4 of the collection.
I'm going to go with A.
Carolyn?
I don't know. Are silverfish that destructive? I don't know.
They do like to eat books.
I'll go with that. That's so weird.
It is weird. It's so gross. It was actually A, so that was correct, Danielle. After British troops lit it on fire. And do you know what that was a part of? I wouldn't have.
Wasn't the original Library of Congress made up of a lot of volumes from Thomas Jefferson's library?
Oh, gosh. Well, the original Library of Congress collection was destroyed after British troops burned the Capitol building. It was during the War of
okay.
12. And at that time, the Library of Congress was housed in the Capitol's North Wing, so it was destroyed. But I do have follow-up trivia. To replace the devastations of British vandalism, former US President Blank offered to sell his personal collection of books, the largest, most comprehensive in the US at the time, to the US government. Was it A, George Washington, B, John Adams, or C, Thomas Jefferson?
C.
That's correct.
Oh, you know
I'm
that.
sorry. When I asked these last night, then Vivian, my 11-year-old, went, TJ. I think they were just studying that.
Yeah, cool.
She was like, TJ. So former US President Thomas Jefferson offered to sell his personal book collection to the US government. With some reservations, the Congress purchased his library for $23,950 in 1815. That seems like a lot of money.
How many volumes was it though?
I don't know, but it says it was the largest and most comprehensive in the US at the time.
Wow.
And I believe it's still at the Library of Congress, although I'd have to.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I don't think they get rid of anything.
No, I don't think so. Okay, you want to do another one?
Yeah, do one more.
Okay. The Juanina Library at the University of Coimbra in Portugal has a number of blank in residency, but no one is calling for them to be removed as the blank prey on blank that could destroy book pages. Is it A, spiders preying on cockroaches, B, bats preying on insects, C, cats preying on rats, or D, birds preying on bookworms?
I'm gonna go with B.
I'm going to go with C.
Okay, so B was bats prey on insects and C was cats prey on rats. It was B, bats prey on insects. It says they have these bats in residency, but the bats eat insects that would mess up their books. So the staff accommodates the bats by draping the tables with coverings overnight, and they clean up all the guano in the morning.
Oh,
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, part of the opening routine. That was good, you guys.
great.
That was
That
fun.
was fun. That was really great.
That was really fun. You guys did great.
So how have you guys been keeping busy? What have you been reading or watching?
I finally started the book Hillbilly Elegy. Did either of you read that?
I haven't.
No, I haven't read that yet.
It's interesting. It's a guy's it was very popular and a lot of people have read it. It's a guy's memoir, and it's kind of about poor white Native Americans and Irish Scots people. I think that's correct. So he's just talking about the heritage of his family, but putting it in a larger social construct and helping and just kind of talking about the dynamics of that group of people to the economy and the government. And I don't know, I'm maybe like a sixth of the way through. So
Are you reading that in print or on ebook?
it's in print.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book called Turn Around Bright Eyes by Rob Sheffield, and he is a music critic. He writes for Rolling Stone. I've read a few of his books over the years. And I somehow missed this one. This came out in 2013. So he kind of just tells bits and pieces of his life in different in his different books. And this one he tells it through his love of karaoke. So I'm really enjoying it when I get to read it.
Cool.
His love of karaoke. That's so funny.
And he says he's a poor singer, so
That's all right.
he loves the chance to sing even though he's not a good singer. How about you, Carolyn?
I'm actually not reading anything right now, but I did just start watching a series on Prime, actually. And I actually went to Hoopla, and I got a whole bunch of things I'm going to watch that the library offers, that the system offers, the service offers. But I am watching something on Prime, which is really great, called The Marvelous Mrs Mazal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that show a lot.
Yeah. Did you finish the whole thing? I'm on the 4th episode or something of the 3rd season.
Yeah, I haven't watched the 3rd season yet. I really like the 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, it started out really strong again. So about a woman comic back in the late 50s.
Is it loosely based on Joan Rivers?
That's what people say. Yeah, it's loosely based on how she started out. She's really basically the only woman doing stand-up comedy back then, and that's the same thing with this character, Mrs. Mazal, and she's great. She's this young actress is really, really great in the role. Rachel Brosnahan, I think it is, and
Cool.
she's really wonderful. Yeah, it's worth it. It's a great show. They go back in time, late 50s.
I bet the clothes are awesome.
The clothes are awesome. The makeup is awesome. And just the way they talk, the language of that time,
Does it
really
feel-
spot on.
I haven't watched it yet. Does it have like a Mad Men-y feel? But
Yeah, they pay a lot of attention to the details of the set and the
Yeah.
costumes and all that, which I feel like was definitely done on Mad Men. It's a comedy though, so the feel. It doesn't have the same feel when you watch it. I think all the actors on it are really good and the characters are interesting. I think the creator is the woman who created the Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, it is. Amy Sherman Palladino. She created Gilmore Girls, which I loved. Loved
Yeah,
it.
I love that show too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's worth checking out if you want to have a few laughs and go back in time.
Sounds good. Well, how's everyone's pets doing since we're all talking to each other from home?
Oh, good. Mine took off. She was here on the bed, but she's gone now.
Is she on the back of the sofa, I bet?
She's probably down there on the back of the sofa.
Pillow?
Loves it. Yeah. And you know, it's really funny. This morning, we didn't find her on the sofa. I said to my husband, "Where's the dog?" Because I didn't hear her. He's like, "I don't know." Well, she was upstairs. She was here in this room. And the reason why she wasn't on the back of the sofa is because the cushions were too crushed from when she was on it yesterday. So she couldn't see outside the window. She couldn't sit in her little nest and look out the window. She sank too far down. So she came up here to look out the window.
You put in a complaint to the management.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know that's what it is. And then as soon as I fluff them up, she's like, "Oh, okay, my bed's ready. I'm coming back." Yeah. Anyway, that's my pet story for today.
My cat is not in the area that I'm recording this. So I tried to help with the sound, I tried to close the door on one side of the space, but I left it a little bit ajar because I knew if I closed it and he was on one side, he would have meowed or scratched to come in. So I believe once the door was moved, he decided to go in the other side of my place.
Aw, Joey.
Aw, cute.
Well, we had a little drama here yesterday morning. I was still in bed drinking coffee when I heard like crazy cat murdery sounds happening somewhere else in the house, and they were so alarming. I don't think I'd heard that sound before, and I figured one of my cats was being too rough with one of the other ones while they were playing. They play all day. They like run around and chase each other, and once in a while one of them will go a little too far and you'll hear a little hiss or something. That's it. But this was like a crazy squalling, like screaming noise, so I like dove out of bed and like ran out to see what was going on. And I have 3 cats. They were all lined up at the slider door at full attention, like staring outside. One of my 3 cats was the one who made the noise, was puffed up like to twice her size. And there was the neighbor's cat, who's like a giant tomcat who just roams around the neighborhood, was right outside, like looking at them, like all challenging, like, "Yeah, I'm in your yard. What's up?" And they were like so upset, but they were all giving that cat the stink eye. But then when I came out there, then the neighbor cat looked at me and then turned around and walked away really slowly. So
Wow, that's a lot of excitement.
it was pretty exciting.
So interesting to see how they communicate.
I know, it was
Like
such
on
drama.
watch.
Yeah, and they were all like staring outside for like the next 20 minutes, just like, "Yeah, that cat better not come back."
Yeah, right. Keep out.
Exactly.
All right, well, I believe that wraps up this episode of Check It Out. Thank you for joining us. If you need to get in contact with the library, please call us at 978-929-6543. Leave a message and a staff member will get back to you. You can also email us at reference@actonma.gov. And I hope you'll tune in next time where we will continue the history of the Acton Memorial Library. So I'm Danielle Savin, signing off for Check It Out, the Acton Memorial Library Show on 94.9 FM.
Thank you both. That was so fun. And I'm Clare Seaton, signing off.
And I'm Carolyn Lombardo, signing off.